This is a rather interesting summit, I have to say, I think for a couple of reasons. First of all, from a personal point of view, our business model has been increased to now capture the CO2 figure, so the carbon dioxide equivalent number of every single SKU. That software's taken 3 years to build. We've come to this summit, and historically these summits have been a little bit political, my paper's better than your plastic type thing. What's been highly refreshing as far as I'm concerned is there is an open acceptance that there are good materials for every aspect, and the issues are, can we get real data, can we be accurate and transparent with the information that we share in a meaningful way and be trustworthy as individuals. It is definite we need to do something and do it now. It's a fascinating discussion where one could ask, does this really mean packaging? And let's be honest, Boris Johnson has said this is about coal, cars, cash, trees. But actually, packaging comes from energy, or the raw materials, for example, comes from trees. And understanding the implications for the packaging industry, and to achieve net zero targets, which is being discussed at the COP26, everybody's going to have to participate, because you don't make all the carbon emissions just from the top four. I think it's important to recognise packaging is complex. A lot of people want very simple answers and very quickly, and packaging doesn't give you that. It gives you a price that's usually reasonably quick to get. The issue, if you're a consumer, is there are too many words. That is it recyclable, or it can be recycled. It's a number 4, or it's an LDPE, whatever that's supposed to mean to the average consumer. The issue is we need to find the means to communicate to enable. There is a demand, particularly from consumers. You will see in recent years there are other information that has to be shared on food packaging. There's the lozenge, which will advise on the salt and the sugar and the saturated fats, etc. And they're color-coded. If you're a consumer and you're buying a number of products, you want to be able to make quick decisions when you're walking around the supermarket or you're shopping online. You just want to see green. That's a good sign. The issue is the complexity that comes behind that to explain that green. And there's 2 things to approach there. Younger people in particular, but not exclusively, want more detail, because they may not trust a brand or a retailer just promoting this is green. There's a lot of greenwashing that goes on out there. Some recent research that I came across would show 40% of 500 websites that were looked at found greenwashing, and arguably in many instances could have been illegal claims that were being made on the website. And the younger generation, they're more informed. They want to know what's going on. So I believe using a QR code that's also attached to the pack enables the consumer with a smartphone, for example, to access the background data that gives them more information. I think it's extraordinarily challenging for business to do this on their own. And evidence would show, if we look at the past as an experience to take forward, legislation is the only way that will force people. I will give you an example of this year. There is the packaging tax, £200 a tonne. People have been looking to put recycled content into films, and if it happens to be the subject of the year, they'll do something and then probably reverse it. You put a commercial value to that, and suddenly there are now businesses clambering for more and more recycled content, because £200 a tonne in many businesses is quite a penalty. There's a lot of companies that are doing a lot of good things, or at least have a lot of very good intention. there is a lot of misinformation, disinformation, or lack of information. If you want to start, you would look at this, as far as I'm concerned, taking the structure behind the life cycle analysis, and that you need to be able to identify your scope, you need to be able to then go after the data, and if I use Peter Drucker's statement, you've got to start measuring, because if you don't measure it, you don't know whether you have or have not improved upon it. What I think then is 4 words I would give you at this point, which is granularity. You have to go and walk the production lines, as in lean manufacturing. You need to go and get the data. You then need to accurately calculate the implications of that. So the IPCC provides formulas in terms of how that should be done. More importantly, you need transparency. You need to be able to share using your company dashboards, so it's summarized for the executives of the organization to enable them to make the right decisions. And you also then need to consider one final point, which is the authenticity, the trustworthiness of the data. So I will give you an example of Netflix have run a documentary not that long ago called Seaspiracy. And the reference I give you here was to do with the Sustainable Fishing logo, the MSC. And according to that documentary, that was a profit-making tool. It was definitely not there to do what it was set out to achieve. And therein lies why consumers want more detail, and they want the trustworthiness. There are some obvious statements I will give you. The interesting one for carbon emissions, for reducing, as sort of 2 very distinct reduce, reuse, recycle kind of initiatives. You've got carbon emissions initiatives. And then there is cost, and people don't want to pay more. And the interesting thing is that the drivers on cost are usually the drivers of the CO2 emissions, and they are usually the materials that you're buying. So if you reduce the thickness of your material or the number of colours you put on a pack, you're not only then doing something right with the material sustainability, it will be there for longer. You're also saving on the CO2, the energy that's being used to produce those materials and to produce them as a pack, for example, and you're paying less money. So there is a lot of stories going around that consumers are willing to pay 5-10% more for environmentally correct packaging. That actually does not need to happen. My business has produced a case study, and where we have analysed 11,250 ways to produce a wipes packaging. You can get evidence from our website. What I can tell you is that of the 11,250, there were 11,000 different values returned. So the one thing I would say, I'll come back to a comment I made earlier. You need the granularity, you need the accuracy, you need to be able to share this information in an open and transparent way, and you need someone authentic. What we can do is to provide all of that information in a way that it would meet anybody's needs that we're aware of today. Years ago, when a president in America said, we're going to land on the moon by the end of the decade. And they did. You can look at other examples, earth-shattering, earth-changing examples. If we are driven, rather than driven to make excuses or find ways to tick a box and not deliver, if we actually put all that energy into coming up with a result that is right for the country, which is right for the world, and most importantly for me on a personal level, it's right for my grandchildren. I want them to not only have all the opportunities I've had in my lifetime, but I would expect them to have even more. That's the desire of any parent.